Satana Deberry, running for district attorney in Durham. All right, so you're doing this. Tell me.
Yeah, I got my shirt.
I didn't even
Did you notice? We got our t-shirts out.
Oh,
yeah.
I like that. You have the whole
the
scene.
skyline.
Yes.
Exactly. Come volunteer, get a t-shirt.
I like that.
That's how you get a t-shirt.
That's how you get a t-shirt.
So that's always how you get a t-shirt, isn't it?
It is. You got to pay for it either with your time or your money.
There you go.
Thank
Time,
you.
treasure, talent.
Okay, so what made you decide to run for DA?
What made me decide to run for DA? Well, I think I practiced criminal law for about 7 or 8 years.
Okay.
And I was a criminal defense attorney, and I ended up leaving that because I felt like I was getting to my clients too late. Right? By the time they became my clients, the system had gotten to them. And so I moved over time into doing policy and advocacy work. And it's like I've come full circle, right? I see that the policy and advocacy, the policy that we do sets people up.
And so they can either go,
system.
right.
Exactly
So depending upon the policy, they can either take the right path or they can take this other path.
And this other path, the criminal justice system is like a maze, and it only has one way out. And that way out is mass incarceration of black and brown people, right? And so I just started to talk with some people in the community and just hear kind of their frustration in trying to really have impact on the criminal justice system. And as a policy advocate, I know that feeling well, right? That you spend a lot of time talking to stakeholders, trying to get them to change their mind. And so it occurred to me that I could be the person that they were talking to.
So you said full circle, but you could have done that at any point in time. Why now?
Oh, why now? Honestly, because I am the black mother of black children. And I'm tired of having that talk with my kids, right? I've got you have a child who's driving age, right?
Oh yeah.
I've got a child who is right now can get her license and be free on the road, and that scares me. Because even with all of the people I know and all my own knowledge, and we're privileged I'm privileged to know attorneys, to know the criminal justice system. I don't know that I could save my child if she got pulled over.
What about family members? Have you had any family members that have had experiences that sort of stick with you?
Oh yeah. Well, let me just say, you have never really come in contact with the criminal justice system until you've been sitting in the back in the lawyer's lounge, and the bailiff comes to get you, say the judge wants to appoint you to a murder case, and you get out there and the person he wants to appoint you to is your cousin.
Oh, wow. And we talk about it being a small world.
It is, yeah. And so, especially as I was doing my research for this run, there's a group called the Frameworks Institute, and they do all these communication models on how to talk about the issues of the day, right? Whether those be criminal justice or affordable housing or access to healthcare. And one of the things that they talk about is that black and brown people have almost an expert level of understanding of how the criminal justice system works. Not because we do a lot of research, but because no matter how much education we have, no matter how well we do in the world, we are within 1 or 2 degrees of people who are involved in the criminal justice system. So that's a thing.
Yeah, it is. So for people who don't know you and they hear about this experience, they hear about the policy piece, and they say, okay, well, she sounds like a good candidate, but why you over the other 2 candidates? Like, what distinguishes you from them? Because we've got another black male, so he could sort of say some of the same thing. Some of the same things. I'm sure he's had some experiences that he can point to, and serving as district attorney, he has that, I guess, the experience from a different viewpoint just about every day. So what sets you apart?
Well, I think first is that I've had a wide range of experiences. I haven't just been in the courtroom. I've been on the policy side. I understand how these systems really interact with each other to really keep people in jail, right? And to keep us in jeopardy all of the time. I would say why me over the current district attorney is that we have the same criminal justice outcomes in Durham that we had 50 years ago. So we haven't had any real change.
So let me interrupt you then, because Durham likes to call itself progressive. It likes to call itself inclusive. And yet when you look at the data, okay, it is exactly what you just said. We're so progressive that we haven't progressed.
Absolutely.
So what's going wrong?
There is a
be honest. Let me tell you.
Be honest.
Sometimes we, and I hear you, because to some extent you have to process that and say, yeah, here's what I think is going on. But I think a lot of times we aren't open and honest as a community.
Sure.
We say we want certain outcomes, but we're unwilling to have the conversations about it, and we're hard pressed to take the action that needs to be taken. So why haven't we truly progressed if we call ourselves progressive?
Yeah, I think first of all, what you say is we have to acknowledge that we have a problem. And so what we want to say is, hey, we've elected a black person more than once as district attorney.
Mm-hmm.
So we must be progressive. But what I will tell you is that a career prosecutor does what a career prosecutor does, which is they learn to convict people. They don't learn to look at the system as a whole. They're not really there about keeping the community safe and really going after the violent criminals who make us unsafe. They're about more convictions. And, as our grandmas would say, you can't dismantle the master's house with the master's tools.
So new tools.
New tools. You have to have people who see the system differently. And I certainly see the system differently. I did not grow up, so to speak, in the prosecutor's office.
Okay.
And I wasn't taught to look at people who come into the courtroom a certain way.
Right.
And so that's what happens here in Durham.
Yeah. So how do we start to make those changes? So say you get elected and you get in. What are we going to see that's different?
I think the first thing we're going to see is that we're going to divert people from the jail. So the Durham County is about 38% black.
Okay, 38% black.
80% of the people in the jail are black.
Wow. Okay.
And most of those people, more than half of those people, are there on bails of $5,000 or less.
Wow.
So these are people who have not been convicted of anything.
Mm-hmm.
And
they just can't get out.
They just can't get out. And not only can they not get out, but they're being held for offenses that are considered such low-rung offenses that their bond is less than $5,000.
Yeah.
Right? So that's non-violent felonies and misdemeanors.
Mm-hmm.
And so the first thing that we would see if I'm elected is that we divert most of those cases, if not all of those, from arrest.
Right. And so we're looking at non-violent offenders and saying this is what we're going to do in order to put them back on a different path. They don't have to be in jail.
Right. I think you have to give people. Right. Yeah, you have to give people the chance to show up for jail before you punish them for not showing up for jail. I think that's kind of a basic tenet of our justice system. So that would be the first thing we can, especially for non-violent, for low-level misdemeanor drug offenses.
Right.
Those can be handled either through a citation system or through, if the police are arresting people, give people a court date right then. They don't have to be arrested and go to jail.
Yeah, because the whole point is making sure they show up for court.
The whole point is to make sure people show up for court.
Okay.
And we're prosecuting too many people for substance abuse and mental health issues.
Yeah. Well, and then we get into talking about funding and really appropriating what we need to in terms of resources to be able to make sure that people can get the treatment that they need. And so that they're not in the jail system, but they're in the medical system, which is where they really need to be.
Well, I've heard two different numbers, but either the county commission spends $110 a day on keeping people in jail or spends $126 a day.
Okay, in either case.
Either way, that is money that they can be using for other things.
Yeah.
That's money they can be using for diversion programs. If you want to keep it in criminal justice, you can be using that for diversion programs, for substance abuse programs, for mental health beds. If you want to be really creative, that's money that could go back into our schools.
Yeah. Well, that's not even really creative. That's like what we ought to be doing,
basic,
right?
Right?
It's sort of like, yeah.
But you get people who tell you, you know, that's in this budget line and that's in that budget line. And you can't switch budget lines. So,
yeah.
Even if we give you that argument, there are better places, even within the criminal justice system, to spend that $110 to $126 a day.
Yeah. So what so I said what other change, you know, what change could we expect to see? But also, what do you think like the big issue is, you know?
In criminal justice in
Yeah,
Durham?
here.
I mean, the real issue is racial bias.
Okay.
Right? The real issue is that we are arresting young people of color because they are young people of color. Period.
And that goes back to?
That goes back to Jim Crow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And so that is, we are not doing anything different than we did when our parents were younger.
So we say we are, you know, and I think people forget that. I don't know. I think part of it is people want to feel like they're not racist. They don't want anybody to call them racist. They don't want that label on them. They want to feel like they're treating everyone fairly. And so if that's how you want to describe yourself, well, it's going to be hard pressed for you to sit back and say, well, what I just did was racist.
Well, I don't think we have to describe any one person as racist. You can look at the outcomes of the criminal justice system in Durham and understand that those are racially unjust outcomes.
Right.
That is not about the fair and equal administration of justice, that is about something else. And what I would offer that is about is our implicit bias about this community and who is safe and unsafe in this community. So in Durham County, it takes 3 to 4 years to bring a violent felony to trial.
Wow, 3 to 4 years.
3 to 4 years.
And what's that? So like during that time frame, like that person probably has a family.
Sure.
May have had a job, may have had other interests that person was trying to pursue. How does all that play out over a 3 to 4 year time frame? What does that look like?
Well, so for a violent felon, you might say, well, I have no sympathy for those people, right? They've committed some kind of violent crime. But even if we have no sympathy for the defendants and their families and what's happening to their lives, think about what happens to a victim or a victim's family who has to wait 3 to 4 years and has to show up to a session of court only to be told, oh, we're not ready yet, come back next month, right?
So
we don't get to those because we're so busy in this county prosecuting misdemeanors and nonviolent felonies.
Okay.
Right? We're so busy
So
prosecuting
we're
16-year-olds for possession of marijuana that we can't get to the violent felons who really keep our community unsafe.
So we're talking about a reallocation of resources.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And transparency in the process. I think the current district attorney's office has no real prosecution policy that you can speak of.
So in terms of prioritizing and saying here's how we prioritize what we're doing. Okay.
As a community,
and being transparent with the community. That's right.
So as a community, this is what we feel keeps us safe. And these are our highest priorities in our community. And then being able to communicate that to defense attorneys, to defendants, to victims, as opposed to saying, well, my attorney knows the district attorney, so I'm going to go first, or my attorney doesn't know the district attorney, or this courtroom is different than that courtroom. We just have a transparent policy where folks know what they're in for and what we as a community stand for.
So how long have you been in Durham?
Wow, I first came to Durham in 1991 to go to law school at Duke. And as all Duke lawyers do after graduation, I went to DC. And I came back to North Carolina to practice, and then came back to Durham again in the late 90s to work at Self-Help. And left for a little bit to go to Baltimore, but that was like a couple years, but have pretty much been in Durham full-time now since the early 2000s.
Okay. So yeah, and I ask you that because you made this statement about transparency in the process and in how cases are prioritized and letting different people who are involved in different cases know about it. So you talked about, for instance, the victims and the community. And you know, one of the things that I was thinking about when you said that was I was trying to remember how long I've been in Durham, which is why I asked you how long you have been in Durham, and to sort of think about had I heard anything about this is how we do things in the DA's office, community, this is what the process looks like in terms of how we keep you safe, and yet how we treat people who are coming through the system in a fair and equitable manner. I can't recall ever getting any of that. And so that's why when you said that, I'm sort of like,
we don't have these discussions. We haven't had these discussions before. And I don't know that we can call ourselves a progressive community unless we're having these discussions about the least of us.
Right.
Right, and what is happening to the least of us, especially in our institutions, right? Because those are where the power lie in the community. And those are the things that go on irrespective of who's living here.
So you know, there are all of these challenges. Is there anything when you think about sort of what's going on in the world right now? You know, we've got this person in the White House. We've got a state legislature that, you know,
is doing what they do.
Yeah, I'm amazed sometimes at how hard they work to make sure that other people's rights are taken away from them. I'm like, wow, they're really good at it. And there we have Mr. Levon coming over and saying hi.
Mr. Barnes is here. I'm going to get upstage in my own interview.
No, you won't. Well, let me get
yeah, go in the middle.
I don't know if you know if you're ready. She's crazy.
I've been knowing her a long time.
Well, then you already know. But look at you. I love it. That's how you know you're doing right. You got to be your own brand ambassador.
There you go.
You know? But no, I just wanted to say hello. And
I got something before. I'm doing the shirt thing. Wait and see. Okay, go.
I wish you the best of luck. I know you're going to be great. I know we're supposed to get up at some point in time, but I mean, I'll let my broker.
I told her I needed to work out before I did this, so I had a sheen like you did for your.
But that's what I did. That's the smart thing, because then she knows she can't just like kill you. And then you gotta promise her some more of those crack cookies that she did.
Oh yeah, I see those cookies. Yeah.
Everybody's gonna know all about the cookies. They'll be down a loaf going, wait, I hear you have some sort of cookies. I just keep hearing about these cookies.
I'm sugar free for right now. I gotta wear a suit.
Awesome.
I gotta wear a suit on the campaign trail.
I got you.
No cookies for me.
I got you. I hear you. So yeah, so that was Levon Barnes. So let's see. This is what happened when you work out at Millenium Sports Club. People just come walking through, and it's just like, hey, what's up? So yeah,
that's the beauty of Durham. Right?
That is the beauty of Durham. Emerson gets on me all the time. We can't go anywhere without you talking to somebody. But yeah, so we've got some challenges both at the federal level and at the state level. So how do you think that plays out here in Durham?
Wow. So overall in this country, we have an issue around criminal justice, right? There are, believe it or not, only 2,400 elected prosecutors in all of the United States. And so those 2,400 people hold an inordinate amount of power.
Right.
Even beyond kind of the bully pulpit of the presidency, and especially here in North Carolina, because prosecutors don't answer to the General Assembly. Right. They answer to the voters in their community. And so what I think that means for us here in Durham, that is, if we are really committed to progressive change, we have to be committed to it in the place that we suffer the most. And that is in how we prosecute people here. If we are doing the same thing that is happening in less progressive places, then we're not progressives, right? We're not moving this progressive city forward. And I think people are starting to realize that here. You know about the city council election. We had a really long and interesting and deep deep down into the weeds city council race, right?
Yeah, we did.
You had to answer a lot of questions on a lot of things, even things that were outside of your purview.
Right.
And so we have to ask those same questions about the district attorney, and we have to ask those same questions about the sheriff, because those are the Durham County District Attorney has 100% discretion in the charging and prosecution of cases in Durham County. 100% discretion.
And so we want to make sure we get that right.
And see, we want to make sure we're getting that right, because that not only has a system-wide effect, but that affects individual people's lives every day. The decisions that the district attorney makes around whether or not to prosecute a 16-year-old for misdemeanor possession of marijuana ring throughout that person's life. Right? That gets back to their school, and they're treated a certain way in school. When they apply to college, they're treated a certain way. They may give up on college, right? Because they've heard, I can't get into college if I have a record.
Yeah.
Or they can't get the money to go to college.
Even licensing, licensing boards ask questions.
Even licensing.
Everybody does a background check now,
Absolutely, for every job.
Yeah.
You
would not be doing your job if you were a hiring manager and you didn't do a background check on
Well, I read an article.
Yeah,
it's true. I read an article a couple weeks ago in the Herald Sun. We got all this development downtown in Durham. We've got more hotels than we've ever had, and they're struggling to find housekeeping help.
Oh wow, I believe it. Right? I believe it.
And one of the reasons they're struggling to find housekeeping help is you got to bond all those people. Right? So if you live in a community where you take the people, and those are not highly skilled jobs, but they require some level of skill.
Right. That's right.
But what they definitely are entry-level positions. Right? They're the kind of jobs that in our economy you can still get with just a high school diploma or a couple years of community college, right? And some training. But if you have a criminal record, you can't get bonded. I mean, these are multinational. This is not a mom and pop.
That's right.
We're not mom and pop situations anymore here in Durham.
That's right.
Right, where one hiring manager gets to look at you in your face and decide, oh, well, you're a good kid. Your grandma lives across the street from me. I'm going to take a chance.
That's right.
No, like you said, this is somebody who works for a multinational corporation who's putting your name into a computer database, and within seconds, that database is saying you can't hire this person because we can't get insurance with that person working.
That's right.
And so these decisions ring throughout a person's entire life. And so we have to start taking that seriously. It's not just about conviction rates. It's not just about seeming like we're tough on crime. Because really what we are is tough on people.
Nearly as many people. So down here.
So you want to bring it as close to your body as possible.
Okay. How far down am I going?
Touch your... So right now, my maximum deadlift is about 315.
Oh wow, 350? You said 315 and you frowned.
Well, cause
like there's a difference to me between 350 and 315. There's not a difference there.
So this is about one. Bend from your hip. It feels good?
Yeah. I had cut it up when I was running, I was like, oh, I got an extra shirt. And it's like 90 degrees outside.
Let's see if I can do 300.
300? Okay. We're going for 300.
That would be 25 more. That would be 25 each side.
Do not ask me to do math after 9 o'clock. Sam will tell us. Sam, how much we got up there?
That's 225 plus 50 is what?
275. Oh, we're right. Okay, 275. So now we need another 25.
So what y'all doing?
I love that. He goes, who's doing that?
So what? What you call that?
I'm doing it. I'm deadlifting.
What you call that?
I call that deadlifting.
So you deadlift?
I do.
You deadlift for a federation?
I don't deadlift for a federation.
So you just do it for
I
yourself?
crossfit.
CrossFit. I thought you said Satan.
She's running for
I'm running for
district
district attorney.
Okay. Okay. Durham?
No, that's right.
We already have one. Okay. I didn't know the election was coming.
You're like, what's that got to do with it?
Yeah, I know. Back when I know something about deadlifting. Okay,
You know something about deadlifting?
I do know about powerlifting.
Oh, do you know powerlifting? I'm not surprised.
I started in 08. Right now, I only compete like once a year because of my age, 64 years old.
What?
Yeah.
You made that up? Did you make that up?
1953, December 5. You good at figures. I know I can tell you good at figures. Yeah, December
Better
5th,
words than
1953. So yeah,
Okay.
so
Yeah, I do some powerlifting. I do some Olympic lifting.
well,
I also started too late.
yeah, story of our life. I know.
I know, right?
Yeah.
If I had been doing it in my 20s, I might have been something.
Right, yeah, that's what I say too. I started in my 50s. So I thoroughly enjoy competing. So where you from?
I'm from Hamilton, North Carolina.
Hammond. I heard of that. I went to North Carolina Central, so I know about all the little country towns.
You know.
Country
That's
town.
true.
All of them.
Because everybody comes to Central from all the little country towns.
And
That's
don't
right.
go back home.
That's
Once
right.
they
No,
graduate,
no.
past that, they stay here. So I'm an original Durhamite, born and raised.
So I was talking to Fred Williams the other day at the courthouse, and he would say, he said, I wish I had $1 for all of these people come to law school at Central. All they talk about is Durham ain't this and Durham ain't that.
And then they
And he said,
stay.
I be daggone if all of them don't stay.
Can't get us to go back
He said,
home.
they don't go nowhere.
It's the bright light, stoplights and stuff. They'd be amazed. Stoplights.
But he was like, even people who come from like New York and DC, if I was in New York, he's like, go back to New York then.
Baby, that's what I always say too. Come down here, stay 4 years, 5 if you have to, get your degree, take it home.
Take it home.
Born and raised right here in Durham. Durhamite. Born and raised. Been here. I went to Central early. I went to Central when the old law building. So I remember the old law building.
Well, my aunt went, she went, was it even Central when she went?
North Carolina College.
Yeah, I think it was North Carolina College when she went.
Yeah, they changed
Her
it.
degree says North Carolina
Yeah, they changed it. So I was a freshman in 1977. So, yeah, they hadn't been too long changed.
She's probably 15 years older than you, so.
Yeah, they hadn't been too long changed. Yeah, I remember the best chancellor they had was Whitey. Chancellor Whitey.
2 10s and 2 2.5.
But you do know we have a powerlifting platform in the back. This is not a powerlifting platform
really?
down here.
So, in other words, she was following the directions of someone who doesn't know.
Right, and
Same with her.
that would be you. I know. That would be you. Okay?
I was like, oh yeah, it's down there.
No, it's not. We have 2 platforms in the back. Okay?
In the back where?
In the back.
Yeah. I know, I look back there.
Yeah,
That
that's
looks like
what.
where's going on.
Yeah, that's where the powerlifting. I mean the.
Well, I should have just come ask you.
I work here, Jim.
That's always the answer.
Yeah.
Answers always come as
We
same.
need good guidance. Usually the guy at the front is a guide to the right place.
That's
What I
right.
really need for you to do.
But yeah.
Sam, would you prefer we switch to the powerlifting back?
Just don't drop it.
I know. Well, I might drop it.
But you better go back in the back.
Right. That's the rule. Right.
Yeah, that's right. It ain't personal.
We don't fight. You just gonna kick me out, right?
Yeah.
All right. You ready?
Sheila, you gotta go.
Boom. Exactly.
All right. There you go. 300.
All right, so Satana Deberry,
Durham County District Attorney.
And so you know this was, are you fit to be a politician? So are you fit to be a politician?
I am fit to be a
She
politician.
is fit to be a politician.
Vote May 8th. One thing we do need to say, last thing to say, is that there is no general election for a district attorney. So it is only the primary. So come out and vote May 8th. That's crucial.
And we're at Millenium Gym in Durham on Hillsborough Road.